It's me again. I'm such an idiot. Look at this. See this book? I meant to bring this book up. It's so important to me. I read this book about, I don't know, 6 months ago for the second time. And Carl is just on, and I apologized to him profusely. I said, Carl, you're a Pulitzer Prize winner for All the President's Men and all this stuff is going on in the country, but how did you become you? This is how he became him as a young kid. It's like the most cinematic book I've ever read. It's good. I wish I was a little younger to play him as a kid. It's just like a true faux movie, like 400 blows. It's astonishing. He's like Huck Finn in this book. You got to get this. It's called Chasing History, A Kid in the Newsroom. And Carl is going to come back and we're going to discuss this book because it's unbelievable. Carl, are you there? Oh, good. It's Lewis. It's Lewis, Carl. See, it happens again. You can blame me, Carl.
How's that?
You got it.
Okay, let me just fix the picture a little bit.
You have to fix you. You look perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Always were a handsome journalist, Carl.
Listen,
I want to apologize. I want to apologize for not bringing up that book that I read and that got raved.
Not to worry.
I know, but The Kid in the Newsroom, it's one of the most amazing stories, and people have to know, if they haven't read this, how you became the you that you are.
And we're rolling here, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, tell them.
Childhood time. You weren't exactly, Mr. Student. It seemed you were sort of like Peck's bad boy. You were like, I wouldn't call you a juvenile delinquent, but you seem not to take to school very well. Am I wrong?
Well, actually, the juvenile court would call me a juvenile delinquent because I was sick. What this book is, it's about this 16-year-old kid who has 1 foot in the classroom, 1 foot in the pool hall, and 1 foot in the juvenile court, and who ends up getting this job as a copy boy, the lowest rung on the ladder,
right,
at one of the great newspapers in this country, the Washington Star, the opposition paper to the Washington Post, where I had my Watergate career later. And it's about the adventures of this kid with the best seat in the country in the most amazing time in America, the civil rights movement. I go to work at the Star in the last weeks of the Kennedy-Nixon campaign for president. And within 2 weeks of going to work there, the city editor of the paper says, Bernstein, Kennedy's coming to your high school. Why don't you go cover the crowd there?
Oh, man.
And I did. And in these 5 years that I was at the Star, from age 16 to 21, I learned pretty much everything I know about journalism, about reporting, and pretty much about life with these amazing characters who were my mentors, my teachers. Interestingly enough, 3 of them, 3 Pulitzer winners, were all women who became among my mentors there. I'm a dropout. I dropped out of college. I only went for a little bit. I was lucky to get out of high school. In fact, the only reason I did get out of high school is the faculty voted they'd rather, even though I was failing out, they'd rather get me out of the school than have me there for another year. And so this kid just gets to do these incredible things in the capital of the United States.
Wow.
And remember, I'm a second generation native of Washington, D.C., which was a
Right.
Jim Crow town. I went to legally segregated schools in the capital of the United States until the Brown decision in 1954 integrated my 6th grade class. There was a Negro division and a white division for the schools in Washington, D.C. And a lot of the book is about civil rights. A lot of the book is about this kid who gets to go to the White House, running errands, picking up stuff in the press room at the White House. The first time I ever go to the White House, and you can feel a shiver go down your neck when you go there as a kid. And covering everything you can imagine: cops, murders, airline crashes, I hate to say, civil rights, the beginning of the war in Vietnam, and And this kid gets to do it all with these remarkable people.
But you had to do the work, though, right, Carl? Otherwise, you wouldn't have been promoted to, or at least getting the good gigs and the good assignments.
No, they made me a reporter just before I was age 19.
Wow.
And I was the youngest reporter there. I was also the only one in that era that did not have a college degree. And I had to leave the paper eventually. And the way I got to the Washington Post was that they insisted that I finish college. And there was no way that was going to happen. And for me to stay on the staff as a full-time reporter, I had to finish college. I couldn't finish college then or today, I don't think.
Was that the rule with that paper that you had to do that?
It was the beginning at almost all newspapers, big newspapers in America. Unfortunately, I mean, I'm one who believes that we need dropout reporters now. That we need reporters who come from all kinds of experiences, especially working class kids who grew up differently than those who went to fancy Ivy League schools, et cetera, et cetera. And we had those people at the Star, but the profession was changing, and there was this belief that we now needed educated kids coming out of the Ivy League schools. I was the exception, I'm happy to say.
Wow. Let me ask you a question. This is all about you, Carl. Can you see me where you're sitting?
Yeah.
You can, because I don't see me, and I'm happy that I'm so sick
you
of
look
me.
Good. You got. I think that's Lenny. I think that's Lenny Bruce behind you.
Lenny Bruce
right?
by a Claxton picture. There's another picture of me by Bob Groom holding my face, like I got to get out of this business. But you were just starting in the business, and what a beginning for a teenager to be able to work with these people. And but what was how did you transition to after 21 when you left the Star? What were the events
Well, one of the things about this book is there is not a word about anything after I'm at the Star. There's an epilogue that shows that I went to the Washington Post and what happened to some of these people at the Star in their later years. But there's nothing about Watergate. But what you see in the book is how everything I learned at the Star becomes applicable later in Watergate.
Correct.
You don't have to I don't have to tell the Watergate story over again. You see this idea that I learned at the Star about what is it that a reporter does, the best obtainable version of the truth. I learned from covering the civil rights movement. Yes, the truth is not neutral. How did I learn that? Spending a day with the wife of Mickey Schwerner, one of the 3 civil rights workers killed in Mississippi. Schwerner, Cheney, Goodman drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. That's about their murder in Mississippi, trying to register voters. This was the time I went to work at the Washington Star and spent the day with the widow of this civil rights worker. He was missing at the time, and went with her to the White House when she goes to see President Lyndon Johnson and says to Lyndon Johnson, "You need to do more to find my husband."
Wow.
And even today, I mean, it chills down my back. And the sadness, the horror of what was going on in the country at the time. There's another civil rights worker from Washington, D.C., shot to death, leaving his his summer military training at Fort Benning in Georgia. He was a major in the Army, a great patriot. And as he's leaving Fort Benning in Georgia, he is shot to death because he's Black. This is going on in America at the time that I go to work at the Star. So civil rights is a big theme of the book, but also, it's a little bit like Huck Finn. I don't want to compare myself to anything in Mark Twain.
I already did. It's too late, Carl.
But it's about this kid that has an apprenticeship that's like no other. Instead of life on the Mississippi, it's in the capital of the United States.
Right. You know, I felt I had print all over my hands every night I turned the pages, and I bought 10 of them and I gave it to some journalist friends. You know, they were holding it like it was like the Holy Grail. And the reason I wanted to bring this up when we first had part one of this interview with you, it's hardly an interview, it's you, man, is that you're all over the news now with the 50th anniversary of All the President's Men and with the new forward. But it dawned on me like, geez, I hope people realize what it took for you to become that guy. And it started so early in life. It's such an amazing story about a youngster, a young teenager, and you're 21 years old at the end of your stay at the Star, and you're ready, and you've already covered so many stories. It's like a film to me, and I don't want to give away the ending. It's an astonishing epilogue which brought chills to my spine. It was written so beautifully. I just can't praise you enough for writing this book, and everybody should read this. It's just it's like having a film in your hands every night before you finish it. Congratulations on the book.
Well, let me give you, you talked there about print on your hands, and the book almost begins again with I know I'm going to be hired. I'm going to have an interview actually to the possibility of going to work at this great newspaper, and I don't have a summer suit, and so I go to a place
Right.
no label Louis downtown in Washington, near where my great grandmother lives, and I buy this cream colored suit. And my first day or second day at the Star, I go to work there, and the only reason I got hired is I took typing in the 10th grade. I was still in the 10th grade or 11th grade when I got hired. I took typing with the girls at Montgomery Blair High School. And because I was sick of going to shop classes and make those silly wooden trays. One more shop class would have done it for me. And I bought this suit at No Label Louis to go to work in, cream colored. And the second day I'm there, the head copy boy says, Bernstein, you're working the 12 o'clock shift, the noon shift. You got to go wash the carbon paper. I said, what?
Oh. And
I've got on this cream colored suit, and the reporters would type their stories on these, we called them books, of 6 copies with this purple double-sided carbon paper between each sheet of paper. And I mean, you didn't want to go near it to touch this stuff because it would send up a cloud of purple smoke. And this guy tells me, you got to go in the bathroom and pick up all the carbon paper in the newsroom and go into the bathroom and wash it. And I know that somebody's putting me up to something that's going to be trouble. But he says, you better do it. Don't let the city editor see you, without having washed that carbon paper. So I go around and I collect all this carbon paper about this high. And I go into the washroom, and I then take the carbon paper and I put it all in the sink, and I turn on the faucet, and it all comes up again all over my cream colored suit from No Label Louis. And there's a guy next to me at the urinal, and I recognize him immediately as the editor of the paper, Newbold Noyes Jr. And he looks at me and says, son, what are you doing? And I say, oh, Mr. Noyes, proud of myself that I know who he is. I say, oh, Mr. Noyes, it's noontime. I'm washing the carbon paper. And he looks at me and says, you get the hell out of here. You go back in that newsroom and tell them this ever happens again, that somebody's head is going to roll.
Wow.
And that's the atmosphere. It was also the greatest of fun. These people went to lunch together every day. A lot of booze in the story. They were big drinkers, a lot of them. The idea was that, in fact, at that time, they would drink a lot of them 2 doubles bird bath martinis. And I would do the same when I was very young. And then they would go back after the paper had been put to bed, and a lot of them would sit there after work drinking pitchers of beer on the theory that the lunch hour, that the rush hour, where they were waiting out to rush hour, well, the rush hour went on till about midnight. Anyway, it's about as joyous an experience as a kid in this country could have, and purposeful at the same time. An amazing time in the country.
It's just, and Carl,
I've been lucky ever since.
You've not been lucky, but after 50 years after Watergate, and that book, to finally have people know how much love you had for this business over a half a century ago. It's such great reading. It's a must read for anyone who admires you and is a student of history. And this is the first bonus show I've ever had, so I couldn't be happier. So thank you. And so people remember, this is the title. It's not my face. It's Carl Bernstein. And I love you, Carl. And have a great evening. And I'll speak to you soon.
Great. Good to be with you. Thanks so
All right,
much.
buddy. Okay,
Bye.
pal. Bye-bye.